Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mastering Medicine video lectures. Today you are going to learn about cell theory in its discovery. During this lecture, I'd like to talk about some important points. For example, the first point would be what is the basic cell definition? Secondly, who was Master Robert Hooke and what was his role in cell discovery? Thirdly, what is cork material and its basic characteristics? And also, I'd like to talk about another gentleman whose name is Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. What was his role in cell discovery? And also, I'll clarify that what does the word cell mean? Okay. And also, two important points of our today's lecture would be the story of cell discovery and cell theories and its basic properties. Before we get started with the lecture, please go to description box, click on website link and download our today's free lecture notes. So let's dig into the lecture. The first thing is first that what is the basic cell definition. Before I define the cell, let me give you an example. You know, this is a wall. This wall is made of blocks. This wall is made of blocks. This wall is made of blocks. These building blocks are functional and structural units of this wall. So each of this block is a building and structural unit of this wall. Like that, all living beings are made of small blocks. And these small blocks are called cells. Okay, I'll define it later, but let me give you an example. You know, this is a cell. When different cells are combined together, they're going to make tissues. What are tissues? I'll explain them in upcoming video lectures, but for now, when different type of tissues are combined together, they are going to make different type of organs, different types of organs. For example, they're going to make kidneys, they're going to make a heart, they're going to make stomach, they're going to make liver, and so on. When different types of organs are come together or are combined together, they're going to make a system. For example, gastrointestinal system, for example, cardiovascular system, for example, nervous system, and so on. When different and various systems are combined together, they're going to make a living body, they're going to make a living organism. That's why we define a cell, that cells are the basic structural and functional unit of living beings, or cells are the smallest basic structural and functional unit of all living beings. Okay, cells are come together, we could make a human, we could make a fish, we could make a flower, a butterfly, birds, and so on. So now let's move to the next part of our lecture, which is about the story of cell discovery. You know, before dig into this part, let me give you a little bit information about cork material. You know, cork is the outer part of cork oak tree, which was grown in Mediterranean regions. You know, cork has fascinating and interesting characteristics. For example, their water resistance, their fire resistance, they float on water, and so on. That's why, because of having these characteristics, they were used for different purposes. For example, one of those purposes was that it was used to make stoppers. Do you know stoppers? Stoppers are these cups of bottles. This theory is so important because one day there was a master whose name was Master Robert Hooke during 17th century or during 1665 years. He had a microscope which had capability of magnifying an object 30 times greater than its original size. You know what's a microscope? Microscope is an instrument which magnify an object for us. So he thought one day that why these toppers are so tight, why they're so suitable, why it doesn't allow air to go out from the inside of the water to the from the inside of the bottle to the outside of the bottle. So he took a piece of cork, he cut it, and he put it under his microscope. When he examined this piece of cork, he saw some small holes within this piece of cork. These holes were looked like honeycombs. And these small holes reminded him monks' monasteries. Do you know monks? Monks are religious people who live alone, and the places where they live, these places are called monasteries. So, because of that, these holes were separated from each other, and because of that, he coined a name for these holes. He called them cells. So he called each of these holes as a single cell because cell is taken from a Latin word cellus, and cellus means empty, empty spaces, or cells were taken from cellula, and cellula means small room. So that was the reason that why he coined a name cell. Okay, and what does the word cell mean? Got it? Okay, so let's move on to the next part of our lecture. Let me clarify another point, that who saw animal cells for the first time. There was a gentleman at the end of 17th century, and his name was Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. He had a microscope which had capability of magnifying an object 300 greater than its original size. One day he saw water under his microscope. When he saw it, he saw some small molecules which were moving from one area to another area, and it was so amazing for him. You know, actually, they were microbes, but he didn't know about this, so he named them any molecule. So any molecules were small animals. Actually, they were microbes, but he didn't know. So for the first time, he discovered animal cells. Okay, so let's move on to the next part of our video lecture, which is so important, and it's about cell theory in its basic properties. Until 1830, the importance of a cell was not realized, but in 1838, there was a botanist whose name was Matthias Schleiden. He said, he was a botanist. He said that in spite of variety among different type of plants, he said all plants are made of cells. He said that there should be a cell, that this cell will divide and go to make a new plant. So he said that an embryo of a plant is originated from a single cell. For example, this cell is going to make a flower, another cell is going to make a tree. Okay, and in same time, another gentleman came in. He proposed a comprehensive report on the basis of cell theory. I'll teach you four basic cell theory, but two of them were proposed by this gentleman. His name was Theodor Schwann. He proposed two basic theories about the cell. He said that number one, all all living organisms are made of made of cells. And secondly, he said, he said that cells are basic structural units of living organisms. Got it? And after this gentleman, another master came in. His name was Rodolphe Virchow. He proposed the third cell tenet. He said that all new cells are originated from pre-existing cells, or all new cells are arisen from pre-existing cells. And he said that all new cells are originated from pre-existing cells. Got it? And after it means that if we don't have a pre-existing cells, we can't make a new cell. Okay, a cell will come, it will divide into two cells, into two daughter cells, and new cell will be generated, and new cells will be made. Okay, and after the discovery of DNA, they added the fourth cell tenet or cell theory in this series. You know, they said, number 4, they said that all cells contain genetic materials. That all cells contain genetic materials. Okay, and we have some ways to use them for controlling of cell functions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the basic properties of the cells. In spite of variety among different cells, there are some things which are same among a lot of cells. For example, they have the same characteristics or properties. For example, all cells contain cell membrane. Do you know cell membrane? For example, this is a cell. This outer layer of a cell is called cell membrane. I'll explain it in future or in upcoming video lectures, but for now, this cell membrane separates intracellular area from the extracellular area. So all cells contain cell membrane. Thirdly, all cells utilize energy. They need energy. I'll explain them in future lectures. Another one, these cells have potency of mechanical movements. For example, they can move. For example, this cell will come here and this cell will go there. So these cells have capability of moving from one area to another area. And the next one, we can use cells for examining a lot of diseases in vitro. Okay, we can culture them, and the first cell that was cultured, it was a HeLa cell. Okay, and another properties of a cell, it's an idea. We say that it's an hypothetical idea. We say that all living organisms on the earth, they are originated from a single cell. That cell was on the earth thousands and millions years ago, and this cell name is Leuca, last universal common ancestors. Okay, this only an idea that there was a cell, and it changed to many types of living organisms. And they do chemical reactions, and they use the chemical reactions for different purposes. And another properties of the cells are that they have capability of producing themselves. They have this capability. We will explain it under the cell division. Okay, so I hope you have gotten a lot of information about basic cell definition, what was a cell, about Master Robert Hooke, who was that gentleman, about cork material, about Anthony Leeuwenhoek, what does cell mean, and also about 4 basic theories and some basic properties of the cells. And in upcoming video lectures, we will talk on eukaryote and prokaryote, the different types of the cells. Have a good time.